What a great session that was, giving an insight into how we make our locos. Hello everyone, I am JD, I'm the Director of Community at Dovetail Games, and I'm really excited today to be chairing a panel discussion on sim gaming with some of my esteemed colleagues at Dovetail. Shall we get them introduced? Hello team.
Hello.
Hello.
It's lovely to see you all on a Sunday evening. I'm going to kick things off today by just introducing each one of you. Well, I won't introduce you. You can introduce yourselves one at a time. I'll start with Matt, first of all.
Hi, I'm Matt Pedleston. I'm a senior producer here at Dovetail Games for Train Sim World 2.
Adam, next, please.
Hi, I'm Adam Lucas. I'm a producer also on Train Sim World 2, but I head up the preservation crew.
And Adam, I will go to everybody else. What is the preservation crew?
So what we do is we look after and support all the routes and trains after they have been released and make sure we add any extra features that have been developed and make sure they stay relevant and enjoyable.
Brilliant. I'll go down to Rob next, please.
Rob Payne, I'm the producer for Train Simulator 2021, which is the granddaddy of the Sims.
It absolutely is. And finally, let's go to Derek, please.
Hi, I'm Derek Siddle, and I'm art director here at Dovetail Games.
Brilliant. And in case you didn't know who Dovetail are, hello, we are some of the people who work here. We create simulation games by enthusiasts, for enthusiasts. And if you haven't had a chance to check out any of the other sessions that we've been doing over the course of Railfan Fest, then please check out the VODs afterwards, particularly the last session, which I was kind of watching in just awe, really, at how we go about producing some of the amazing stuff that goes into the games. But that's not really why we're here for this hour. I'm not going to indulge myself in chatting for too much longer because I want the guys on the panel to be the vessels for the knowledge in the course of the next hour or so. I've got some questions that I'm going to be asking them over the course of the next hour or so, but we'd also love your questions. We've got about a 15-minute segment at the end of it, which we're going to open up to questions from you guys at home. So if you have anything you'd like to ask our panel, try and keep it relatively general about simulator games, about Train Sim World as a whole, rather than things like specific routes, because we'd rather kind of answer those questions more generally. And obviously, if we've got sort of questions about Train Simulator as well, we've got some really good people on the panel as well to be able to answer those. So without further ado, I'm going to kick things off with a fairly general question to start off with, and I'm going to direct this one over to Derek first of all. So how did you get started in train simulation?
I started in train simulation in 2006, January 2006, where I went for a job interview at the Kuju Entertainment, who were then heading up Rail Simulator. And that was kind of where it all originated from. Kuju Entertainment were the company that produced Microsoft Train Simulator, the original one, and then they looked to follow it up with a sequel, and lead artist.
Brilliant, Rob. I'll pass over to you next. Same question.
Randomly, I bought the game. I tried out Microsoft Train Simulator, and I was playing it, and I thought, I wonder if there's anything better than this. And I just had a look around on the internet, and it turned out that Rail Simulator that Derek was talking about was coming out the following day. And then I went off to PC World, I think it was, and bought it the following day. So that's where I started.
Amazing. And I wanted to give a shout out to your background as well for the Zoom call, because, as I say, for those who are in the UK, you will know that tomorrow is a very special day where we get to go back into pub gardens tomorrow. Yeah. So everyone's looking forward to that. Adam, how about you? Same question. How did you get started in the world of train simulation?
Like others have mentioned, I found Microsoft Train Simulator and I got thoroughly involved in that. I joined the community, started getting interested in the content that I wanted to play, so the trains and the routes. This might be a hint at my interest, and I've been with Train Simulation since probably 2001, when Kuju Entertainment announced that they were going to do another production. I was banging at the door saying, I want a job, give me a job, I'll do anything. And I've been here ever since.
Wow, so you are one of the mainstays of the team over the course of the, however long that is. I can't be bothered to do the maths off the top of my head. Finally, Matt, how about you? How did you get into train sim? Yeah, train simulation even.
I think sometime around 2000, I entered a competition in a magazine. I think it was something really complicated, like what color is the green Flying Scotsman? And unsurprisingly, I got the question right, probably like everybody else. And I won a free copy of Microsoft Train Simulator 1 week before it launched in the UK. Shortly after that, I set up a website called UK Train Sim, and just my interest in train simulation just exploded from there.
And brilliant. And kind of a follow-up question, I suppose, to that is when did you realise that kind of playing these games that by the sounds of things had just come out and that you were kind of exploring for the first time? When did you realise that train simulation would be as popular as it is today? And given that you just answered, Matt, I'll come to you first.
So in my case, it was I knew I had an interest in railways. I did not have the space for a model railway in the house. And when I started playing Microsoft Train Sim, I was like, this is ticking all the boxes. Okay, you know, this is kind of letting me do what I want. This is going to be really popular amongst train enthusiasts. So, and as each new sim has come out, it's just got better and better. So kind of, you know, that first experience of realizing this does everything we really want it to do. It's awesome.
Brilliant. And Derek, I'm going to ask the same question to you. When did you kind of realise that this thing that you were doing that was kind of perhaps a personal thing was very much a group of people who were all very interested in a very similar thing?
So I think it happened around about 2008 when we released one of our first bits of DLC, which is downloadable content, which was a route which wasn't part of the main game. And we saw the appetite from our users to have new and different routes to drive than the core 4 or 5 that came with the release. And I think that was the moment that it cemented that this is something that people really want. And it set the blueprint for, you know, what was to follow for the next sort of 12, 13 years.
Yeah, when you said 2008, I was like, oh, that doesn't seem that long ago. And then when you said 12, 13 years, I was like, oh yeah, actually, it is a fair while ago.
Yes.
Anyone else want to jump in on that one, or would we like to talk about how much time we have logged on our simulator games? Because I know this was a question that everyone was looking forward to answering.
The only comment I would say is that I don't, because I'm so passionate about train sim and just the fun it can have, I've never really considered the popularity or just how big it is, just because I love what I do. So I just get my head down and enjoy using the tools and playing the gameplay and everything. So yeah, I don't necessarily consider the popularity. I just love doing it.
And that's absolutely the way it should work, isn't it? You should ultimately, first and foremost, enjoy what it is that you're doing, and then you find people that have a similar interest, and then the love and the explosion of enjoyment comes from there, really. Okay, let's go on to the meaty question that I think a lot of players will be very interested to know. And actually, people in the chat, I would love to know the answer to this question as well. So if you want to chuck it in the chat, then please do. Who has logged the most game time on our sims? And I'll go to Rob first, because I think, Rob, when we were doing this earlier, you had a particularly impressive number to start off with.
Well, yeah, I think I'm about 18, 19,000 hours, I think. Something like that. It was that sort of ballpark.
I think we did some very back of a fag packet maths, and that ended up being over 2 years worth of game time. Solid,
yeah. That's a lot of that is creating routes, though, because I mean that's my main thing is route building. So I mean Matt would be the one for the actual gameplay, I would say. Whereas the rest is actually work. Matt just plays. So anyway, if there's an impressive amount of gameplay time, then it would be Matt. But yeah, for route building, yes, it's. But then that is over the course of the last 10 years. So obviously, I've been sort of dotting about for 7 of those 10 years, somewhere on the line.
Derek, how about you?
No, you don't want to come to me. You don't need to ask.
No, I think we do.
So after I've been asked this question last week, I've got 3 accounts. So I tallied up all 3 accounts, and I think I have something like 2,000 hours. Now, that is playing, and that is essentially driving the route with the OH shunter. However, I think I then tallied up my time in the editor, which doesn't get counted, and it's along 20,000, if not more, hours in the Blueprint editor. So it's the creating of the artwork. So that's my only saving grace.
Adam, how about you?
Well, Derek touched on a great point there, that there is a difference between the editor and running the software. And that is where we get caught out, because we are obviously spending more time in the editor than we do in the software. So I clocked up, I reckon, about over 6,000 hours in Trenton 1. And again, because the editor is completely separate to the running game in Trenton World, I've only got 600 hours logged in the direct software on Trenton World. So seems low, but then, yeah, we're talking 15 years worth of editing time. So.
All the excuses are coming out now.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not, because I'm the host, I can avoid answering this question myself, which I definitely will do. But Matt, let's go to you.
So I've spent a lot of time playing it on my personal account because, you know, this is a game I spend a lot of time playing at home. And I think I probably on my personal account got about 10,000 hours just playing the game. On my work account, I've probably got about another 3,000 or 4,000 hours, which again mostly would be playtesting, since I don't do an awful lot of content creation. So yeah, somewhere in the region of those two, I would say it's a combination of those.
Wow, that's I think that's some hours clocked, I think, over the course of the four of you. I think I've seen a few in the chat who are doing 10,000 miles, over 300 hours, 969 hours. There's a lot of time that's been clocked, and I think everybody, there's a few people saying they've got some catching up to do. I don't blame you. I definitely have that as well. I think mine's
we have a biased advantage, I would say. Yeah,
mine's in tens, I would say. So I've got a lot of catching up to do myself.
Nice one. I like it. Nice.
Yeah, let's go with that, and let's move swiftly on to the next question. Okay, let's go on to kind of the sim routes as a whole. Which do you find being the most entertaining to drive yourself? I know we've obviously tested a lot of them, we've designed a lot of them, but actually from a gameplay experience perspective, which is your favourite? And I'll go to Rob first with this one.
I think, I mean, each different sort of genre has its own merits, if you like, and I think there's a different mindset with different types of train simulation and train driving. But I'm quite partial to a bit of US freight, to be honest. I quite enjoy just the sheer power of the US freight trains, you know, grinding your way up a mountain pass, and then the sort of slightly scary moment coming back down the other side. So it's not all about, you know, just dashing around from here to there. I'm more, you know, quite into a bit of slow speed freight.
Okay, let's go. I know Matt hates these kinds of questions, so I'm going to go straight to him next.
Well, I like all the routes for all the reasons, so that's useful. I think on Train Sim 2021, I'd probably say we're down Teesdale, because it's got such a wide variety of things that you can do, the wide variety of journeys you could take. It's in a really, really nice time period with sort of steam and green diesel crossover. And there's some really challenging gradients on it, ridiculous gradient on there that which catches me out every single time. It's just, and I like that sort of thing. It's that thing that it doesn't matter how many times you've done it, you know you're going to get it wrong, and you do. And it just, you know, it's great, you know. But that's what I really like. We're down at Teesdale. It's a fantastic route.
Cool. Let's go to you, Derek, then. What's your favourite one to drive?
I think my favourite, because I thought about this quite a lot, and I don't play like the other guys. I tend to drive all of the routes with the Class OH Hunter, mainly because it trundles along at 20 miles an hour, and I get to see the whole route. But I think the route that I enjoyed to drive with the original rolling stock that came with the route is Semmeringbahn. Just the curves, the viaducts, the tunnels, the vistas are amazing. And it was one of the first routes that I thought was truly beautiful in TS1. So yeah, I would say Semmeringbahn. Close, Mariah's Pass close behind it, I think.
Brilliant. And
of course, I played Derek to say that.
This is just a love fest tonight, isn't it? Adam, how about you?
So I've really struggled with this one, and we were actually talking before the panel. This is a hard question because we get to work on so many routes and enjoy so many trains. But if I was really hard pushed, I'm definitely the Metro fan. Probably at number one is going to be London Brighton. It was a fantastic route to make. It's a fantastic route to drive. All the quick starts and stops, variety of stock, and then that same kind of theme trickles over to things like Great Western Express, or what else we got, the Cross City, the recent one that I've been playing. That's been awesome as well. So yeah, Metro stuff for me.
I think that's a really nice range, actually, and I think it goes a really good way to just kind of showing the diversity of interest within the people that work for Dovetail as well. I think it's really important that we get a wide range of people who are interested in lots of different things coming into the company. And it kind of leads me on to a question that I had put further down in my list, but I'm going to answer it now because I think it's a good point to ask it. Freight or passenger? And I'm going to go again. I'm going to go to Rob first because I feel like he probably has already put his cards on the table.
Freight. Yeah. There you go.
Freight. Derek?
Shunting, which is freight.
Okay, Adam?
I'm going to be annoying and say both because I actually like the interaction. So freight or passenger, if it's fun to do, then I love doing it. So.
And Matt?
A bit like Adam, actually. A bit like I like both, but if I had to go one way or the other, then I'd fall down on freight.
Because I'm not afraid here. Wow.
You can't miss the stations on freight, can you?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Nebworth.
A couple of cop-out answers there, but I'll let you off. And just a quick reminder to everybody who is in the chat right now, we are going to be taking some player questions at the end of this from you guys at home. So if you have any questions, please put them in the chat, and our minions, the rest of the team, will be on hand to try and make sure that they can grab as many as they can for you. We've got about 15 minutes at the end of this segment to answer all of your questions. So we're really looking forward to seeing what you come up with. Okay. We're going to hypothesize at this point. This is going to go out of the realm of what is in the games and what is in real life. But if you owned your own train company, your real world train company, what would your ideal line look like? And I'm gonna go Derek first on this one, because I think that in particular for you were talking about sort of scenery and lines and stations. So I'll go to you first.
Did you see my brain working? So I think we touched on this last week, but for me, I would reopen a number of old lines that have been closed in very scenic areas of the country or the world, but definitely in the UK, where the beautiful bits of track, but probably only service small towns and villages. But it's a real shame to see them gone. And we're so used to walking these old lines. It would be amazing, I think, to actually reopen them and restore the stations to their former glory, have them joined up again with some modern traction. That's what I would do.
Are there any stations in particular you think could do with a bit of love?
Well, I'm rather biased to the northeast, but I would love to see maybe going up to Middleton, Teesdale, coming back through Barnard Castle and then down through to Darlington. I think would be a rather special route to reopen.
Yeah, if anyone didn't know, Derek put Bishop Auckland on the railway map. Yeah.
I don't think so. I think it was there long before.
Well, never got slower before.
Rob, how about you? What would, in your kind of ideal, if you owned your own train company,
Derek,
what would you do?
way, just not in the same part of the country. Definitely, I think. It would be probably the Great Central.
Ooh, okay.
Properly,
You may have to give him some more information there, Rob.
Like Marylebone, Sheffield, essentially. Marylebone through the middle, Leicester, Nottingham.
So sort of connecting
it's a closed main line. And I kind of think it should really have been HS2. Or it should be used for HS2 rather than what they're doing currently, but that's another
I did have that in my mind. Yeah, I did have that in my mind when you were talking about it, but yeah, we'll not broach on that subject tonight. But Adam, in your world, what would your ideal route look like? Or if you had anything that you could do in the world, what would you do?
Well, I really love the stuff that Japan is doing with their Shinkansens. I love the Shinkansen notion of dedicated trunk line, dedicated high-speed line. So yeah, I'm a big fan of High Speed 1, big fan of High Speed 2, the TGV network, and I think the Shu Shinkansen being developed in Japan, which is the Maglev Shinkansen, and you're getting to speeds that are so high. They're thinking about most of it will be in tunnels. And I think that's a great thing as well, because then that doesn't impact on the environment and the issues that come up when we try and build new railways, which are totally understandable. So I think I love high speed, and I think new futuristic networks that connect cities and things together, potentially, across Europe and the major continents, rather than say just within one country.
Well, I like that answer. Matt, how about you? You've had a bit of time to think.
I know, but they've all done the good ones. So my favourite types of railways are commuter operations, and so it will probably be something which is connecting places together, maybe the places that aren't currently connected, and taking people to holiday destinations. I don't care about work destinations. We want to go on holidays. We want to enjoy our time out. So we want we want a railway with nice looking trains that are comfortable and fast, and will take people to fun destinations. So pink pacers, that kind of thing, top of the range stuff, and going to nice places in the countryside.
Whereabouts it would be the holiday destination you would choose? Put you on the spot.
I'm really fond of the southwest, to be honest. It's somewhere I want to go and spend some time. Once we're allowed out of our bedrooms, in sort of Cornwall, Devon area, and take in some of the railway lines down there. There's some really beautiful stuff down there.
Couldn't agree more. My favourite is a little route which goes from St Erth to St Ives, and I think that as you go around the corner and you sort of from Carbis Bay to St Ives, and you see sort of the cliffs on the right hand side, and you see the big sea with the turquoise water, absolutely stunning. Couldn't agree more, Matt.
But if you were Adam, you would just build a tunnel and you just
bulldoze right through it.
Straight and fast. Yeah.
Lovely. Okay. Let's go on to another question. And again, just a quick shout out that if you do have any questions, please put them in the chat. We'd love to take them. We've got some time at the end to be able to take some of your questions, and we're rattling through some of these actually, so we might have a little bit longer than I expected to begin with. So we'll go through them as and when we
can definitely give longer answers if you want them. I was briefed to keep it short.
Don't encourage it, please.
Gives me less to do, so why not? Let's stay on the kind of theme of favourite things. What would your top 3 stations are, and what would your top 3 stations be? And they don't have to be UK; they could be worldwide. In fact, it might even be better if you could choose one from each country, or one from different countries. Rob's face is terrified, so I won't go to him
Don't
first.
ask me first.
Freight doesn't have stations. That's the problem, I guess.
I'll go to Derek first with this one.
Oh man. Okay, so I've not built hardly any stations. Is that rubbish English? But I guess I think I would pick something along the lines of Bishop Auckland first. I really need to remake that. Then I would pick something like Dresden, and then I think it would go something rural in the US, like Truckee or something like that, just at the bottom of the before you start the gradient going up to the summit. I think that was a really nice sort of the station itself was quite small, but actually the vista going up to the summit was beautiful. So I think beautiful stations in beautiful locations is what it's all about. And the interesting thing about the stations is that you start making them knowing nothing. It's just like a name, and you're like, I don't even know where that is. And then by the end of it, you kind of know everything there is to know, where the coffee shop is and where the underpass is, and you become really knowledgeable in all about the station. So yeah, for me it's those 3: Bishop, Dresden and something like Truckee, which I don't even know if it's a proper station, but it's a lovely location.
We'll allow it. Matt, how about you?
So I'll do one from each of the three. So in Germany, I'm going to go with Munich. It's massive. It connects to everything. There are thousands of signals. It's just the view from the end of the platform is just this sea of Borg lights facing you, essentially. Just as you depart Munich station, the tracks are all crisscrossing over each other. It's just I just really like that. In the UK, London Waterloo used to be where the Eurostars came in back in the day. But there's been a variety of traffic coming out of there, turning south towards Brighton or heading west towards Basingstoke and the like. And it's just that epitome of really busy trains flying all over the place, which is really interesting. And I used to travel through Waterloo via the Jubilee line to get to work back when I used to work in London as well. So I used to visit it frequently and, maybe linger longer than I should. And then in the States, I quite like Grand Central Terminal because certainly as an engineer driving the trains in and out of there, the station itself is certainly back where the trains are is fairly warehouse-like. But when you're driving the trains in and out, you've got these crisscrossing tracks. It's dark, it's underground. You've got the narrow corridors you drive through before you burst out into the light, and then you're into sort of the busy central New York. It's so it's really, again, I think that's a really interesting station, and this is big loop track around it as well. So it's got quite, it's just, there's a lot of character in Grand Central.
Lovely. I have seen the outside of Grand Central, but I've never seen the inside. So I think that's one that I'm going to need to put on my list in future. Adam, how about you?
I don't know whether or how to put them into an order of 1, 2, 3, but I think definitely my top stations are the likes of Bristol, Temple Meads, York, Newcastle, mostly because these are cathedral-like stations in the UK. But they're not straight. Someone had to design them and then they bent them. And that has got to be some incredible piece of engineering to have these enormous stations with these curved roofs going and serving all different kinds of destinations. So every time I go to such stations like that, I just love to stand there and enjoy just the architecture that's been put into it. I think they're amazing stations. It would be so much easier to build them straight, but they bent them, so that's even more amazing.
And flat too.
Yeah.
Making things difficult for themselves, as we know and love, and for everyone else. Yes. Rob, how about you? You've had some time to think.
I have. Yeah, everyone keeps saying what I was going to say as well, which is harsh. I'm going to say Cologne. Actually, I think maybe not necessarily the station itself particularly, but certainly with the cathedral, the backdrop, and the bridge. Off to one side as well, also on a curve, just for Adam, keep him happy. Cologne's a great place, and I mean St Pancras again. I mean, going back to the sort of the architectural cathedral theme, St Pancras is there's not many others that can beat that really. And I'd also say the original Penn, New York Penn, before it got kind of flattened. Again, another sort of cathedral, just a wondrous piece of architecture. I also stick Nottingham Victoria in there as well, just to keep my historic Great Central theme going. But again, Nottingham Victoria was an amazing cathedral of rail and was just flattened and lost, which is a great shame.
If I may jump in, actually, it's incredible looking back at places like New York Penn and Grand Central that we've mentioned, because when they first arrived on the island, they were so much bigger than is seen today. I think they're very, very sublime and hidden today. It was a shame when they sold what was called air rights, which is basically to sell the space above the railway line to commercial purposes. So you had these amazing stations. One thing for the chat maybe is which one came first? Was it Grand Central or Penn? Because both stations were just huge, and now there's so little left to enjoy. Yeah, I think it's amazing to look back at what Grand Central was before they built over the top of it.
That's a really good point. I mean, railways have been such a fulcrum of architecture and infrastructure for however long, and we've seen sort of in the last, well, probably 50 years or so, the kind of the growth of gentrification, of the kind of the city building upwards, and it makes a lot of these structures seem perhaps a little bit less impressive than perhaps they did a while back, which is a real shame. But you can enjoy a lot of these within Train Sim World and Train Simulator 2021. Cheeky plug there, and that's the last one that you'll see from me today. Okay, let's talk a little bit more about the future. So what do we think? In fact, no, let's not talk about the future yet. Save that for a little bit. Sorry, I jumped ahead a little bit. In terms of creating virtual routes, we've had a couple of sessions at Railfan Fest already where we've talked about locos and we've talked about route building. But in terms of the tool sets that are the most valuable for you all when you're producing routes, what would they be? I'll come to Matt first on this one.
I don't really make routes, but I think that certainly when it comes to designing, specking out the route and understanding the route and the context around it, the two things that I use the most are Wikipedia and the line art maps that all the background information and Google Earth. So plotting it out into KML files and comparing that with the rest of the information in Wikipedia to try and get context and history, so that that branch line might only be a mile, but actually it's one of the most important branch lines on the route for X, Y, and Z reasons. So those two would probably be my go-to tools when I'm specifying routes in the first place.
Cool. And I will come back to this question, but it's a second question that comes on from that. What did we do before the world of Google Earth being as good as it is today, or Wikipedia being as populated as it is today with as much information as you could shake a stick at? How did we build the routes before those became prominent? And maybe that's not a question for Matt, but
I think Adam could probably answer that one better than anybody.
We went to OS and we bought satellite images, square mile by square mile, and then stitched them back together in Photoshop to create larger maps. This was actually in 2004, 2005, when Rail Simulator was being developed. We had to buy maps, satellite images from OS. There was no such thing as Google Earth or being able to plot marker lines and then follow them. We had to guess. So we used compass directions and things to lay the likes of Cajon Pass and Newcastle, York and stuff. So yeah.
We didn't.
That is
it was
crazy.
Educated.
It was designed. It was well designed. Yeah, very well designed.
That is. I mean, that is some undertaking. And
it is.
I think
one of the. Sorry, can I just interrupt? One of the where this is evident is where it was. Some of the maps were stitched together wrong, and in one of the original routes, I think it was York to Newcastle. There's a little wiggle in the track. And I think it's just before North Allerton. I can't remember exactly where it's at, but it's where the map wasn't stitched together properly, and the person laying the track put in this little wiggle. And it's like, well, where did that come from?
Well, actually, something for Rob as well. You know, when you've got to lay, even with the tools we have today and all the information we can pull, how do you ensure that you're drawing 7 mile straight line in the right direction?
In honesty, you ignore what Google Earth shows you, to be honest, for quite a lot of it, because Google Earth is a fantastic tool. There's absolutely no doubt about it. And my one answer to that would be Google Earth is the tool, but it's got an awful lot of distortion in it. And again, I think Matt can talk about the mathematics of stitching the world together on a flat surface and all this sort of carry on. But it has splits in it and jumps, similar to, as Derek was saying, with the maps. But it's just a question of knowing that you're in a straight line. And we also have them on YouTube. Cab ride videos are invaluable at times as well, particularly for things like that, where you don't know whether or not you're on a straight, or, you know, you look at Google Earth and it doesn't really look straight. And then when you look at a cab ride video, absolutely, it's dead as an arrow, you know, arrow straight. And at that point, you just have to ignore kind of what's in the middle, and you just know that one end is one end of a straight, and the other end 7 miles away is the other end of a straight, and whatever happens in the middle has to be in a straight line. Yeah, it just has to be, even if it's over there somewhere, if it's 10 meters away. So be it. That's Google Earth is wrong. Which, to be fair, I mean, you know, bearing in mind, I often think the guy should qualify this by saying I do a lot of track laying for dovetail, which is why I'm a little bit passionate about this.
Sounds like you're doing a lot of guessing.
It's educated guessing, Derek. That's what it is. I know I've lost my train of thought now. But yeah, you Cab Ride VO is very helpful. Google Earth is fantastic, despite the fact that it's not as accurate as you might wish it was at times. And certainly the impression it gets is that it's super accurate. But actually, some of it, like the New York routes we've done, they're shocking. And it picks up all the buildings, and you just end up with these wavy lines everywhere.
Not the quality of the route, obviously the reference material.
Yeah. Sorry, Google Earth. I should say that. But then again, I'm sort of sitting here thinking, well, actually, this is taken from however many hundreds of miles up in the air, and I'm zooming in to look at a street, to look at a roadside, and complaining that it's not in the right place. So maybe I've got need to lower my expectations a little bit, perhaps.
I know that we've talked quite a lot about this, Derek. I know you were wanting to just quickly jump in on something. Did you want to just kind of final that point?
Yeah, I just want to say that one of the things, or I think one of the most important things with the internet opening up, is the sheer amount of imagery that you can search for now that you couldn't necessarily look at like in 2004 to 2007. So just like users and people passionate about the subject matter all sharing their photographs. It was when we did Google image searches 15 years ago, you maybe get 2 or 3 images come up of a location. Now you get hundreds. So we get a really good 360 representation of most locations. So I think that just users sharing their images has been a massive change from when it first started. Of course, that's a good thing and a bad thing, because then they can tell us, we can be told where things haven't quite gone. Maybe.
But I guess it also indicates a turning point in the accuracy of the simulations, really, because before Coogee Rail Simulator back in 2007, when we were trying to do this kind of accuracy, train simulators consisted of straights and curves, and that was it. So either the track was going around a corner or it was going in a straight line. The ability to stay true to what it was in real life was really, really hard. So yeah, there was a big step change in the accuracy of routes around the 2005-2007 period.
Great. I'm going to move on, but that was really, really interesting. Thanks everybody for your answer to that, because I think that feels really illuminating for me coming into this quite fresh as well. There are a couple of questions that I did want to ask before we go into some player questions. So in terms of your time at Dovetail so far, what have you seen as the biggest change development? I think we probably touched on maybe a couple of bits of this already. But what have you seen as kind of the biggest change in the way that you work, or the way that we currently do things, that we perhaps didn't do 5-10 years ago? I'm gonna go to Matt first on this one, because he's good at being able to think up answers on the fly.
Well, I'm going to let you down. So I think largely it's covered. The fact that we have access to a lot more data than we used to have access to means that we can get to, write in quotes answers quicker, rather than bouncing it backwards and forwards until we refine ourselves down to what ends up being a sort of a sensible answer. We can get there much quicker, and without having to have a large group of people involved in trying to spend hours doing research on it. So I think the research side of things, obviously computers have got faster, which has meant that we're able to do more quicker, and the time taken to, when we first were doing Train Sim World, for example, we have this thing called timetable mode in Train Sim World, and creating a timetable mode involves doing a full simulation of the entire of the 24 hours. And when we did Sandpatch Grade for CSX Heavy Haul, that literally took 24 hours to do one iteration of that. So if you wanted to then find a bug, if you fixed a bug, you do another 24 hours of waiting for it to, you literally come back the following afternoon and see whether or not it worked or whether it failed. Now that takes 30 minutes. So, and that's not just because of computers getting faster, which of course they have, but of course the core code has been optimized and improved, and the whole process. So now we're able to do more adventurous things because it take the recycle time on that is so much faster.
Cool. I'm gonna go to Derek next on that one.
So one of the big things that have changed from my point of view is when we first started out, I think there was like 6 or 7 of us. So our pool of knowledge was quite small. We were passionate and we were keen, and we had a really good infrastructure of reaching out to people who were as keen and as passionate as we were. But we had to solve our own problems. And, you know, with only 6 or 7 people, 2 or 3 might only be an expert in a certain field. And then, as Matt alluded to, you'd have to go off and do some research, which took a large amount of time to come back with what we thought the correct answer. So we got a number of things maybe not quite as correct as we could have done. Whereas now, as we've grown over time, is we've got such a wide base now, and it's deep, which means that we've got a lot of passionate people in the company that have been with us for a very long time. And we can get a bit like what Matt was saying, is we can get to the answers quicker because there's a lot of shared knowledge there in a way that it just wasn't there before. So as we've evolved, we've brought in some really good people who are really passionate and really knowledgeable and can answer those questions without taking an educated guess, which is something we had to do in the early years. So that means that we end up with a much more authentic experience. So that's where it's finished, I think.
And that gives me a really lovely segue into a final question. So Adam, Rob, do you have anything you wanted to add to that, or shall I move on?
No, seeing our team grow from 6 people to the operation we have today, that's the biggest change. It's fantastic now what we can achieve and what we were desperately wanting to do back then. So yeah, it's been a fantastic journey.
Cool, and that's not broken the segue at all.
Developing for 2 sims as well. Let's not forget. I mean, that's a fairly big change, doubling the number of games that you're actually creating for. That's a fairly big change for me.
Absolutely. And then, so lovely segue is if anyone were interested in wanting to get into the sim gaming industry for Dovetail or any other gaming or games company out there, what advice would you give them? And this is going to be the last of the questions that I'm going to ask, and then we're going to go over to some player questions. I'll start, Adam, with you first.
So for me, and I actually have been doing some hiring recently for the Preserve crew on Train Sim World, is passion. People driven and who love what they do and are proud of what they do. That, to me, to some extent, counts more than qualifications or skills, because if you love what you do, you will put your heart and soul into it. And generally, that gets reflected in the work that comes out of the other end. You can tell the difference between someone that's doing it because they've been told to do it and someone doing it because they wanted to do it. So I definitely look for passion and people interested in what they're doing, rather than they want to work in the games industry, they want to be an artist, or they want to tweak audio, or they want to program physics or something. I look for the passion.
Brilliant. Okay, Rob.
I'd give the same answer, to be perfectly honest. Follow your
short and
dreams.
sweet. I like it. Derek, how about you?
Yes, I think we would all say that passion is key, but don't be afraid to fail, and don't be afraid of things that are hard. If you're passionate about what you're going to do, you're going to fail, but the passion is, we'll get back up and do it better next time. So, I think that is sometimes, I've interviewed a lot of people coming for jobs at Dovetail, and the people who have got belief in themselves, passion, creativity, of course, but it's that believe in yourself. That's what it's all about. You can do it.
That's a wonderful message. And again, I wish I finished on you, Derek, but I'm going to start with, I'm going to go to Matt finally.
I think for me, in addition to the common points mentioned earlier, it's don't just get stuck thinking about game dev as being your way into getting into sim gaming. The QA team, they need people with your interests and skills as well. QA is not an easy job, and it's a really great way to get started in gaming industry. But also, it's not just about developing. As I say, the publishing teams need creative people as well, and so it may be that your route into the gaming industry might be, creating marketing assets or supporting with creating movies or something, and then evolve your career as you come in. As you come in, you might start in your role in one company as, say, a graphic designer, and then move on to creating textures for 3D models in the dev studio, or do more in a publishing department. So broaden your horizon. Just get in and get started, and everything blooms from there.
And I'd just like to add,
I was going to go first, Eric,
that happens a lot at Dovetail as well. There has been many people that have crossed from various disciplines and been very successful. So it does really work.
Community management, just saying. If anybody's interested. Okay, thank you very much for those answers, everyone. I'm going to move on to some player questions, and thank you everybody who submitted questions. I have a list of about 15. We're never going to get through 15, unfortunately, but I'm going to try and get through as many as we can do. But I'm only going to direct these answers to one of you guys so that we can get through as many as we can do. If you think you have a really good answer, please raise your hand, and I'll go over to you, and we'll see what we can do. Okay, what is your favourite weather to drive in, and why? And that's from Sean Crabtree. Don't all rush at once, everyone. Adam?
Probably the rain, because it brings in really good lighting. It is also a challenge on the adhesion and the physics. So if you've got a heavy train, it can make things dynamic. You don't know if you're going to be able to stop with your usual pattern or not. So I like a bit of variety, and also it can get in the way on the windscreen. So yeah.
We'll love a little bit of instruction. Okay, number 2. I would seriously like to know more about the simograph. Simograph, sorry. I gave it a little bit of pronunciation in there. And how it is running the show. It's such an important system, and we cannot directly see what it's doing. And that's from Celendis. Anybody want to raise their hand for that one? And I'm going to put. I was going to go to that.
So, I mean, I don't know how to shorten that into a short answer, except I think we need to do a video explaining and demonstrating more of simograph. We've got essentially, you've seen in the previous video to this, you saw the box and stick diagrams that are actually how we build it. That's actually the design tool for it. I mean, each of those boxes is a piece of code where it might be a little bit of code to a lot of code, which does a job, and then they wire between each other. So you've got something like a diesel engine is a small thing which then outputs rotational force to something else, ultimately to wheels or to a diesel generator. So it's I think actually any kind of proper answer to this I think is going to be a half-hour video on its own. It's a fascinating topic, and it's incredibly powerful.
I think we touch on it briefly in one of the articles on Steam recently, don't we?
We did, yes.
So if you want a kind of a very top level introduction, there is an article on our website about 2 or 3 weeks ago around Steam, which gives you a nice kind of entry point. But I do agree we probably need to do a wider video on this moving forward as well.
There were also some of the early dev blogs, dev diaries that we did for Train Sim World, which covered simograph specifically. So they're a good place to look up for more information.
I guess really quick, the analogy I would put it is, have you ever seen where they wire an aircraft on a circuit board first, and then they take all those wires and they put them into the plane? It's literally like you're wiring up a train from scratch and then putting the art and the functionality over the top of it. It is incredible to see it.
Great. Yeah, we're noted on our part that we probably need to do a video about simograph, and we'll try and get on that as soon as we can. Okay, do you have any model railways yourself? And that's from Rowan. I will just do a show of hands for this one. Who has model railways? Okay, Matt, I knew you did because you did a video on it yesterday. But Adam, I'll come to you. What model railways do you have, and what's your kind of collection looking like?
Well, I have an 8-foot by 2-foot multiple unit depot, surprisingly enough, the whole Metro Trains theme. So I have lots of little DMUs that I run around. But also I have a channel tunnel model collection and layout. So I've actually got a lot of what are quite rare, and I keep an eye on eBay for them, shuttle locomotives. Eurostars are a lot easier to come by from Japan. But yeah, my long-term passion is to have a large Eurotunnel layout. So I'm currently building that at the moment.
Cool. And Matt?
So I've got some G gauge in boxes behind me. Got some N gauge. My dad's layout, which is the one that was on the video yesterday, the 1L model railway, is 00HO gauge, and it's just anything everywhere. We run British, American, French, German trains, and it's just it's just a love of trains really, in all gauges and in all styles. They're all fantastic.
Yeah, and if you missed yesterday's segment on it, it's a really great kind of introduction to the world of model railways as well. So if you haven't had a chance to watch it, then please do from yesterday. Watch the VOD. It's on the YouTube channel, on the Facebook page, and on the past broadcasts on Twitch as well. Okay, I'm going to go to a question about this, about era and how we decide what eras we do our content in. So when the team considers a new route, how much thought and time goes into considering what era that's set in? And that's from Pete888. You want to take this one? Derek?
So how much time? A lot of time goes into it, and we have a lot of data regarding what our users, our consumers, our passionate players like to play, especially in Train Simulator 1. So whenever a route is proposed to us, the answer is when. Often it's modern because it's much easier to research. It's generally much easier to surf to sort of get the information and the data required regarding liveries and rolling stock. And the further back we go in time, the more difficult it becomes. To try and understand what the signalling and track layout of a route sort of in the 40s, 50s, and 60s. Then it's forever changing, and it was huge. However, the team do love era tracks, so the team are almost always pushing for a much older track layout. Personally, Blue Diesel, but then there's two people on this panel who really want Steam. So
I was going to also add, if I may, we did a route in Train Sim Classic, which was Exeter to Paignton in modern era. And then later on, we did a fantastic, what I say to myself, conversion to Riviera in the 50s. And we found out that was a fantastically better take on that same route. It, like Derek says, it's a massive thing because it can make a huge difference to how enjoyable the route is.
Yeah, I did that route on my first live stream for Dovetail with Jamie and loved it. Thought it was great. So I completely agree with that one. Okay, favourite pre-grouping steam locomotives. We'll stay on the subject of steam, shall we? And that's from Jamie Kent on Facebook.
Pre-grouping?
Pre-grouping.
Before the 48.
I guess so.
Pre-grouping is before LNER, before BR, before GWR.
Yeah, God.
So for me, one of my favourite routes back in Microsoft Train Sim was the 1920 Skipton's Carlisle with the Midland Railway stuff, and they're just these big chunky locos. There were big wheels on them. Loved them. Man, they look gorgeous.
We've never done a broad gauge, have we? We need to think about broad gauge.
We did once in
TS1.
We did once in TS1.
One.
Anyone else want to contribute to that?
I would say NER for me before LNER. So
you put me on the spot to give me the answer that I can't remember the name of the loco. So
describe it for us. Draw a picture.
Draw a picture. No, that's even worse. No, it'd be an NWR goods loco, which I've completely forgotten the name of until someone tells me. But if I have Wikipedia, I'll tell you in an instant.
You mean the one up the Licky?
No.
Oh, okay.
Move on.
Yeah, quickly.
Next question. So when using Unreal Engine 4, was it harder or easier to use than expected? And that's from Atomic World. Adam?
I would say it's easier, far easier to use than expected. I am in no way a programmer by skill. Probably the best I could program is bold and underlined in a forum code or something. So yeah, I've been able to achieve some fantastic things in Unreal with their visual programming system. So I think it's a fantastic tool that, yeah, you don't need to be a programmer to build stuff.
Awesome. Anyone else want to jump in on that one, or are we all good for you?
I don't think it's harder or easier. I think it allows you to do a lot more. I think the options are there. So it's really, it's that there is no limits. It feels like there's no limits on what you can do with UE4 if you've got the knowledge.
Yeah, I think it's just different. There's some things that it makes incredibly easy, as Adam said. The blueprint system is opening up the benefits of scripting to people who are not scripters. But then there are other bits that are, because you're working in another game engine. If it was in ours, we would have purposely built it to do a particular job exceptionally well, which maybe this can't do as well. But then our engineering team come along and save the day usually. So it's a fantastic tool. I would say overall easier.
Awesome. Okay, I've got two more for you. We're going to run over a little bit just to give everyone a little bit of prior warning. We've got a couple of minutes over, which is nice because I'm enjoying this. We're going to do two more questions. First of all, this hopefully should have a nice short answer. If the team is considering making a route, how do I offer my services in photography or recon with photos? And that's from Alexander Mallet.
So I think if you get in touch with us on the forums, I mean, we publish on the roadmap well in advance what sort of routes we're looking at making. So when you see routes come up, if that's something that you're thinking, hey, that's my area, I can go and help out with that. Get in touch with us on the forum and make yourself known. Other people have done that. Some of them from our beta forum, for example, and they've helped notably make the team's life a lot easier by getting the photos that we want, which is really helpful.
That's a really generous offer, Alexander. Thank you very much for that. Appreciate all of the extra kind of support that people were able to give us, particularly in a time like the moment where it's a bit more difficult to travel to places as well. It's always really nice to have that kind of support. And then finally, I'll go around the rib on this one, just as the final question. Have any of you actually driven a real train? I'm going to say big fat no for me. But Matt, how about you?
I've driven a little Sentinel shunter up on the Bluebell Railway, up and down a little siding. It was a driver for a fiver thing. Otherwise than that, no. I've been fortunate enough to be in the cab a few times, but that was the closest I got to driving, and I loved it.
Adam?
So I've driven a Class 47 on the East Lancs Railway up near Bury in Manchester. That was part of a research for the Newcastle York route, in fact, in the early days. And then I was fortunate enough to drive real train, inverted commas, the simulator at Glasgow, which is a Class 170 simulator. So I was fortunate enough to drive that and a few other of their toys, we shall say. That's all.
You lucky boy. Rob, how about you?
Yeah, I want a driver experience day at Quainton Road. So just shuttling backwards and forwards in a 060 tank loco. That's the extent of my driving. But
nice.
Very,
and Derek?
Very insane. But I actually prefer doing the firing, to be honest, over the driving.
Okay. Interesting. Right, the coalface. Okay, Derek.
Define driving. I moved a Class 08 shunter on a preserved railway line, and I got to say, it scared the living daylights out of me. I don't know what I thought was going to happen. I just thought it'd run away and, pick up speed and crash through something. I didn't enjoy the experience at all. Didn't like it.
I mean, on that really positive note, that's all we've got time for today.
Simulators, so
I feel more in control in a simulator than I do with the real thing.
But thank you very much, all four of you. It's been a really wonderful hour. For me as well, I found it really illuminating. I hope everybody who's been watching has done as well. I hope it's given you a little bit of an insight into some of the team behind the games that you play, and also some of the kind of behind the scenes things that go on behind the curtain. Next up, Tom Connell's fantastic artwork will be very familiar to Train Sim World players out there. But his artistic skills spread beyond virtual railways and the real world, with an interesting backstory on his railway-themed projects. So Joe, who you might see in some of the previous interviews, has caught up with Tom to talk about this and his love of trains in our next segment. Matt and I will be back in about half an hour for Train Sim World 2 New Journeys. But until then, from all of us at Dovetail, have a lovely evening and thank you very much for watching. See you later.
See you, everyone.
Bye all.
Bye-bye.